Okay, welcome Parul and
Thank
hi
you.
again Priya. We are on our third part, which is the final part, and I do look forward to having more conversations between three of us on especially the topic that we have put the spotlight on, right, which is motherhood, role of a caregiver. And now today we are talking about exactly how social media has played a very important role in how the narrative is changing around motherhood, working mothers, caregiver role, and the whole knowledge, perception, stereotyping, understanding of what exactly companies should be thinking, what mothers are thinking, how their thoughts are changing, how they're impacting the brands, companies, hiring practices. This is in the and with you, Parul, and as part of this conversation now, I'm going to pass the mic to you straight away. With Mom's Presso, being the community that has brought together mothers across the demography and cities and regions, right? What has been the journey like, and what's your observation when we talk about the changing role in the caregiver and motherhood?
Thank you so much, Pallavi. It's such a pleasure to be here. I think this is a great platform to get thoughts out from so many different perspectives. And really, it's very, very nice to be a part of this conversation. So now, you know what? I'm going to go back one step. And since I know you've all been talking about terminology, I'd like to correct one terminology. When you say working mothers,
Yes,
we're all working. So I'd just like to make that distinction, and we've talked about this a lot on Mom's Presso, and I know that terminology is not offensive by itself. It's just that over time, use and misuse, also the way it's interpreted makes it seem somewhat not quite right and not quite aligned to the way women are today. So we make a very simple distinction. We say all moms are working, all women are working. Whether you're working from home, at home, or you're professionally employed. So if we're talking about specifically the professionally employed, women, and so there, of course, there's been a sea change, and I think social media has had a lot to do with it. Primarily, the first thing that social media has done for most women across the board, professionally employed or not, is to create a community, is to create a sense of belonging. And for a lot of women, that was missing. So the minute you are in the same space as women who think like you, who are going through the same situations and problems, they become your tribe. And digital tribes are what social media is all about today. So I can have a motherhood tribe where I go and ask my questions about diaper rashes and things like that, and I can have a recipe tribe where I've got like-minded people who are posting simple recipes, the kind that I can do, or I can have a platform where I can actually talk about the angst that I'm facing at work, that why don't people realize that this is happening and I have to handle this as well? Why am I being judged for being a woman and a mother? And all those things come up in when you have like-minded people discussing it. So for all its the bad press that social media gets, I think this has been the most important contribution to give women that sense of community. And like we always say at Mom's Press, so you are not alone. I think we all need to know that. Men, women, across the board, of course, we all need to know that. But women primarily, because for a long time, we have felt isolated. The way the social construct is conditioning over years, the way things have been progressing, yes, we are isolated to that extent. We have been pushed aside and sidelined and all of those things. So the minute you get a bit of that spotlight back on yourself and you realize that, okay, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one who's facing all this, so it's possible. If I'm not the only one, there must be solutions. So it's a huge vote of reassurance that you get from your digital tribes.
No, that's true, and thank you for putting a community together, because it's not an easy feat. And secondly, to make sure that even if you have brought a bunch of people together, what they're talking about, and how that data from different people is converting into information, and how you're creating insights out of it, and how there's an intelligence that you can send back to the different stakeholders. that's a huge journey that all of us need to walk, right? So from our end, I will just say that we have been focusing specifically on making sure that women, mothers, working, not working, they should know about their rights. They should know about what to expect from workplaces. They should be able to tell companies and demand from them what are the better practices that are coming out so that companies can up their game, you know. It's when you demand, sometimes you don't have to wait for somebody to come and give it to you. It's when you have to demand and you have to tell them that, hey, shouldn't you be doing this? Isn't it supposed to be like this? Aren't you? And make the information flow in a cyclical manner. But Priya, I'll come to you now that what exactly has been the observation in terms of, because these communities now exist, right? Earlier we were all fragmented. I did not know whether to knock on my neighbor's door and ask them that क्या आपके यहाँ भी ऐसा हो रहा है, you know, क्या आप भी experience करें, because ये conversations personal life के अंदर कोई करता नहीं है. And as we are becoming a more fragmented society, we actually do not know कि हमारे next door neighbor कौन और क्या कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमें पता है कि दिल्ली में कोई क्या कर रहा है और पंजाब में कोई क्या कर रहा है, right? That's what social media has brought to us. In your observation, what kind of pressure or influence, one is a negative word, another one is a positive word, whichever route you want to take, what kind of pressure or influence it has created for brands to change their narrative now that they know that there is a community sitting online, observing them not as an individual, but as a collective team?
Yeah, I think it puts a lot of pressure on brands because earlier, it was few people's stories, correct? Right now, when you have a social media ecosystem, mothers are constantly chatting and sharing their experiences, good and bad. Yeah. And I think one thing that we realized, I remember Parul, I'm sure you'll remember that even in our Mom's Presso study, they review the brands, they share their experiences. They also have these groups where if a mother is going through some sort of, मुझे ये खरीदना है, क्या करना चाहिए, then these moms know exactly which brands, what to do. And that is why brands need to be in jo peak kiya, keh diya, some rubbish that you put in the market saying that, anyway she will buy it. I think that is changing. And that is changing very rapidly. And I think that is one thing that brands need to be aware of. Second thing, I feel that this ecosystem is a positive ecosystem. Espresso has been successful for 9 years. It's a platform where you can understand what the mother is going through, correct? Otherwise, you would have earlier to call so many people. While you're listening to their experiences, while you're listening to their, stories, you get a sense of what she's going through on an everyday basis. And I think that is rich information that brands can have at their fingertips. Yeah. And that is what social media does. Actually, social media can be positive. The only negative that I would say that happens is brands should not misuse it because there's a lot of pressure that happens on social media, correct? When you see one mother who is being able to bake a cake and make, what was that fashion that happened? No, everybody was making cakes in those cups. I think some went through this trauma that they couldn't do it. So I was like, oh my God. And there are many people who started making these coffees because it was popular in Korea. And I said, what? Why did you make it earlier? Why does this happen to be because social media? So that's the only negative that I see. But there are lots of positives to this ecosystem.
So that has been happening. Parul, what is your observation? Like, for example, when you started the community, right? Is there any way that you were also, and it's been 8 years, right? So how have you seen?
10, almost 10, yeah.
It's been almost 10. Congrats. We'll celebrate next year. No, but as the community is growing, right, there must be some apprehensions because motherhood, or let's bring it more of a family conversation, right? Because being a mother is not just about my role. Being a woman is also not just my individual role, but every time we talk about anything related to our life, it automatically pulls in our families and relations also, right? So if today I had to say that I don't get time, hypothetically, I don't get time to focus on my work as much because there's so much work at home. There will be somebody sitting out there to draw the conclusion that, oh my God, maybe the partner or people at home are not really participating or sharing the load. Right? These inferences are automatically drawn because we are talking about our lives, right? Same thing which happens for companies also. The minute you say something is like that for companies, immediately the inference will be drawn. That makes it very difficult to have these conversations, right? So providing a safe space to be able to share about this in a completely and absolutely non-judgmental manner is such a crucial thing, because ages we got conditioned that these are personal affairs, these are private affairs, these are conversations that you can have with the woman in your family and people in your family, but not with an outsider, right? And that's the I think notion that social media has been able to break for a lot of us also. Maybe because I will never meet that person, I don't really care what that person will end up thinking about. Or there's no way for those people to bump into some family circle or from the social circle and be able to create that judgment and convert it into the interaction, right? So has there been troubles where you have seen that it has been difficult for individual women to be able to speak about some of the conversations, some of the topics, and how has the rest of the community been able to share this particular load?
You're so right, Pallavi. It is difficult for people to speak up. I host a talk show called Let's Talk with Parul, and we bring up exactly this. We bring up conversations that don't happen. I remember I was doing an episode on sexual harassment at work, in the workplace. And I spoke to zillions of women. I spoke to so many. I spoke to lawyers. I spoke to people who had been through it. I spoke to colleagues of people who had been through it, the bystanders, so to speak, those who are on posh committees. Nobody came forward with their own experience like they didn't want to come on camera with that.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because, the person I'm talking about is still my boss. Talk about was my boss, he's still there, he has a family, I don't really want to rock the boat, I'm okay now, I'm settled. It is difficult, and nobody can judge why you don't come forward with your issues and stuff like that. At Mom's Presso, we have a support group system. It's called the Mom's Presso support groups, where women can talk anonymously. They can post their queries anonymously, and there is incredible peer support. You were asking about how does the community react to it. You cannot imagine the kind of peer support that women get. One question about, I'm having these issues with my husband, something as personal as that. Who will come forward and put it on social media where you've only got these happy, pretty pictures? We even trace back, like it is unfortunate that the same person who has those happy pictures on Instagram is posting something of deep angst on the anonymous support group.
True.
It's there. It's very natural. It's very difficult for women to come forward. And we talked about this, and I spoke to an expert who's working with the women's movement for many years, and she said that do not judge anyone who does not come forward, even for something as scarring as sexual harassment at work. You cannot put the onus on that one woman that no, you have to make the change for coming generations and all of that. It's very difficult. There is too much involved for each person, we had another conversation about divorce, for example, that well, of course we've had conversations on divorce. It was on why don't you just leave? Why are you bearing being beaten up every day? We can't see, we cannot judge, we don't know what's going on with that woman. We do her financial situation, her situation with the family, the children. Maybe she doesn't have support. She doesn't have any place to. There are so many things. So what we give them preachy things. It's just a pure counseling session. You also have experts who step in and say that, look, this is how this should be handled. Please make sure this doesn't happen. If that is happening, that's a red flag. Walk out then and there. Seek help, reach out, call someone, speak to somebody, whatever it is. There are things that you and I cannot think of as, just as bystanders. There are things which you will be able to advise from the legal point of view that, look, that is completely illegal. That should not have happened. Call it out. Do something there. there will be something which Priya will be able to say from, her experiences and from her training as a psychologist. So she'll be able to get some more different perspectives out there. So everyone brings in those different perspectives, and that is the brilliance of a community. Bringing it back to, the consumer market and bringing it just to try and tie in over there, what brands need to understand is that the stereotypes need to be broken. A lot of what is going on, a lot of these issues are because of stereotypes, is because of the kind of advertising that is being put up, positioning a product in such a way that, this will make you a good wife. You have to take care of your husband's heart health, for example. I'm just throwing it out there. But the point is that, the minute that is there, the husband also expects that's it. Wife's heart health can go to the dogs. So it has to be a 360-degree approach from all ends. If we are stepping up as peers, as a community, and we are providing whatever support we can to the women who are seeking for it, there has to be some kind of a concerted and a positive effort from other stakeholders, and everybody's a stakeholder at the end of the day, to just try and break those stereotypes and try and make it a little more equitable for women. I think, that's just to use the simplest word that comes to mind,
and the most difficult word to understand for brands,
most
everybody else around us. No, but that's so true, right? And we are looking at social media as a community here, but if I just take the word social and media and not just equate it with Facebook, Twitter, and internet only, but we're talking about social and media, right? And we're talking about community. Every time there's a brand that comes out and they are creating a communication or a message, a community out there which is favoring them, right? So, for example, the same thing. I've yet to come across a brand which is showing that a man instead of a woman, or a non-woman, is actually thinking about what oil to buy, cooking oil to buy. Right? Yet to come across. Okay, I don't think. In case I have missed it, let me know. But that's something I've not seen. Sure, when it comes to washing clothes, we have started seeing. So,
and yet, Pallavi, I'll interrupt you there. When it comes to high purchase decisions like a car, it's a man who's taking that decision. So those are the small stereotypes that brands just need to understand, that moms and women are talking to each other big time. Social media has done, like Priya was saying, you're talking about reviews all the time. Purchase decision is in the woman's hand now to a large extent. And, brands had better realize that. So like you're saying, exactly that kind of advertising, that kind of stereotyping, the image they project has to change for the betterment of everybody.
For the betterment of everybody, and to also change the narrative, take the responsibility that somewhere they are influencing the segments of communities out there.
Sure.
And I don't want to bring patriarchy or feminism in our conversation, but very simply, if you're thinking business, if you're looking at more money, if you're looking at more sales, then you might as well just expand your target group. And it makes more sense that out of 100 people, you're only looking at 20 people. Hey, how about looking at all 100 people all together and create something, right? There's so many men out there who are living alone now, and they actually need to make the decision of buying the cooking oil on their own, right? Yeah. There's so many women out there who are buying cars for themselves, and yet they still go to the men in their family to be able to ask that which car I should buy, right? Because the communication is not targeted to educate them. And that's the shift in the narrative which is required. And that's also the responsibility that specifically lies on brands when they are communicating this, not just through TVs now. So I don't receive any of my information through TV because I don't even own a TV. Okay, everything is online. All the advertisements that I see are coming through social media platforms only for me, with the Twitter alerts and everything. But that's what they need to think now, that who is listening, who all are listening, and what are they thinking.
Absolutely.
But Priya, do you think brands think what are we thinking?
I can give you examples, like I mentioned the first time that I spoke to you about there's a company, the brand that I work with, Car Deco. They have a platform, right? It's an aggregator platform where you want to buy your car. You know who's spending a lot of time on that platform and find it very accessible because you find it very inclusive? It is women. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's where you realize that the brand is listening to you. It is not going with that stereotype saying that, oh, only men check out cars. The information that is given out over there, it's an inclusive saying that yes, she will be looking out for a car. She will need this information. Let us give a lot more information. Then you can also chat with a lot of people, right, who are experts out there. So you don't have to go to the male in the house or anybody else. Yeah. So you can figure all of that out, including saying that I want a test drive. So, it is breaking the cycle of decision making and influencing. And I think that a lot of these brands that are now seeing inclusion and trying to move from this whole stereotyping notions of how men and women do it's like a department, right? That's what we are trying to break, roles and departments, even within the house. So, can I give you one example where one academic person said that, moms are always there for the PTA meeting, but jab bada issue hota hai, discipline wala issue, then the father comes. And I said, really? It is like, and I said, so deeply entrenched is all these stereotyping and biases that we have to put a microscope on each of them, because it's become part of us. Yeah. And I think these conversations bring out all of this. And also being able to be honest about this. It happens to all of us. Yeah.
So somewhere I think at the back end, the teams which are looking at it are not thinking about the impact or the power of communication, right? And the ability to influence and impact the narrative in the upcoming days. Somewhere we are absorbing that ab tak kaisa hota aa raha hai, right? Let's stay in the comfort zone. या कहीं ना कहीं ये रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं लेना कि अच्छा आई कैन मेक दैट चेंज हैपन, हमने तो कभी ऐसा सोचा ही नहीं था. टू थिंक ऑफ वन सेल्फ एज अ ब्रांड व्हेन यू आर लुकिंग एट making some change and not just selling something is the shift that is required. Parul, just coming back to you for an input around this. In the community, what are the, have you actively seen, because we see that on social media it's anyway, even if the communities are not there, in an informal sense, all of us are part of communities online, right? There's a thought process that we are all aligned to. That's why we follow certain people. That's why we are part of certain groups. In the community there at Momspresso, and Priya, please feel free to jump in as well. How actively, because we see that, how actively is the conversation on brands started happening? Like, how actively are we dissecting and analyzing and studying, and also pulling away our support from those brands, or shifting from one to another? What has been your experience? Because I have shifted from certain brands. People tell me that I'm being emotional about it, but for me it's very simple that, hey, I don't align what they are trying to do, so I'm very happy to ditch them and just move to another brand from there. What has been your observation, and have you done the similar thing? Has your brand loyalty changed because of this?
Brand loyalty, maybe not so much, but it's all comes down to what moms are telling each other. So that is one of the first things. In fact, when we began our journey and we were more of a discovery platform, that was really the basis of all the content that we put out there. That's another mom's judgment, much more than what I hear on, see and hear on TV, or what even somebody from another generation, my mom or my mom-in-law, tells me. So moms trust other moms. So the brand talk that is happening in communities is essentially for references, recommendations. I want to try out this particular diaper rash cream. Has anybody had experiences with it? You'll have 10 moms saying, oh, it's great. You'll have one mom saying, or two moms saying, oh, it's not so great. You take your call, essentially that. So I think a lot of it, and this came out in the report. The report itself is such a revelation for a lot of these kind of trends, especially where brands are concerned. So a mom says that, the social media mom says कि मैं सुनती सबकी हूँ, करती अपने मन की हूँ. So I will listen to, those 10 recommendations that come, that, okay, fine, there's A, B, and C in the market. A has so many words, B has so many words, C has, okay. But somehow C fits in with my requirements more. So karti apne man ki hu, and I will see. And the thing is that the mom today, and we've seen that. I mean, the report also brings it out. It's a definitive guide to the new age digital mom, and it's just incredible how it'll be describing you and me, all of us. The the report, it's just very simple. It says that, if I am able to review, to test a product, if I can get a sample pack, moms are saying that out and okay, fine, I'll try your product. It's all right. I don't mind changing brands. Let me, give me a sample. Let me find out from my friends. So as far as loyalty is concerned, I don't think we're tied to any old notions of loyalty, that because we've been using a certain cooking oil for, like my mother used it, so I must use it. It's my awareness, and I'm very aware right now. As a consumer, I am so in tune with what Google University has given me. Whatever I need to know, WhatsApp has backed it up. Facebook has trebled it. So, I am very aware of what I want. I'm also aware of what is there in the market. And now more and more, thanks to social media, thanks to my community, I'm also aware of what that product does, in the sense of how it's actually been, bringing out whatever benefits that everybody is talking about. And then that's it. That's where my choice comes in. So it's really word of mouth. It's really, mom to mom kind of advisory or referential system that
No,
works.
I agree with you, but I personally have never used certain brands only because of the stereotypes that they kept pushing, right? I mean, Fair and Lovely is a new thing, but Olay is something that I never subscribed to because, I mean, come on, at the age of 30, if you're going to tell me about wrinkles and anti-aging, that's a little too much, right? So there are just too many things which you are strengthening. And you can tell me about it at the age of 50, sure, but
There's a question from Rinku. Should I take that up now, or do we do that right at the end?
um let's just give it some time. 5 minutes. I'm waiting for Priya to say something.
Yeah, I was just, I had a story because this was an actual assignment that came to us 5 years ago, because this was a brand that was dealing with mothers and babies. Yeah. And there was there was a lot of thing on the digital thing where they wanted to know that, what is the impact that is going to have on the mothers? Are they going to switch brands? And that is the kind of concern that they were having, because mothers talk to mothers, correct? And they wanted to know that had they shifted the brand, what were their concerns? How much damage has already happened, correct? And that is a concern that they already had 5 years ago, saying that we need to pay attention to this digital mom. We need to understand the power of that digital mom. And I'm talking about 5 years ago. And I'm glad they did that, because they paid heed to that time, because they knew that this is going to really, really start affecting brands sooner or later. Yeah. And the second point, Pallavi and Parul, I feel that today authenticity has become the parameter to judge brand.
Yeah.
You are checking whether brands are authentic. Are they saying because they want to bechna hai, mujhe kuch bechna hai, or they really are concerned about my well-being and my family's well-being?
Yeah.
And we all are built to know when something is fake, when something is not authentic. Yeah. And I think that brands need to pay attention to that. And that's when your loyalty will change. That's when you'll say, this is not aligned with my core values. They are trying to put a wool over my eyes. And that is something brands need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and also what has happened, Priya, earlier people were not discussing. See, I don't think in our previous generation, anybody was watching the TV commercials and then going about sitting and discussing कि अरे ये advertisement देखो इसमें क्या दिखाया है, right? वो thought process था ही नहीं. That activation of discussing, having a discourse around what is being pushed or challenging the social notions and changing roles in gender was never part of the day-to-day lives, right? And that's exactly what social media has brought to us. It has brought discussion and discourse in our active task. Every day we are entering into discussions. Every day we are becoming privy to somebody else having discussion, right? And every day we are seeing that people are dissecting and creating conclusions out of it. There's a lens which has happened, right? And it's out there.
So I'll give you two words. when and pampering, what comes to mind?
Women.
So I'll tell you,
I was thinking of my chihuahua, sorry.
That's also, at least you have a different thought. But
I need that.
Correct. But what I'm saying is I did a study, that's another brand that I work with, Urban Clap. You know that one of their spa treatment thing is very, very this, and guys are using it because now they won't be judged, right? Because, oh, if you're doing a mani-pedi or you're doing a spa or pampering, I think our notions have to change about who everybody needs pampering, no? And that's where we need to break things down, because, and I think brands need to recognize that, the words we use affect the way we think, right? We always talk about that. The way we speak, the way we talk, all of that affects the way we bring out products. And
it's not, I mean, stereotypes need to break from both ends. It's not just, I mean, why just kind of bring it down to only women? There are stereotypes about men that need to be broken as well. Only then will it be better for women, in fact. So, great.
Like the word parenting is what I told Pallavi, that we need to use the word parenting rather than, I'm saying let's move away from caregiver also.
No, anyway, for all the companies, we always say that you have to start using gender neutral terminologies. You have to use terminologies which do not create bias. And that's an active work, because they come to us and they say that what exactly is the intervention that we need to do. We say simplest thing, let's start with language. Let's fix your language first, and the rest of the things will follow anyway. Because that's the deep rooted part of how we communicate with each other. And once we start fixing that, you've already at least on the journey. Nobody will change overnight. The system and the society will not do that. But this is the key thing. This is the root, that so many stereotypical notions are associated with the words that we use, the language that we use. So we are at 2:40 now. I will say, Priya, do you want to take the question from Rinku right now, and then we can look at Komal's question?
You want me to read it? Which requires a little bit of chasma sometimes.
Rinku has said that, Parul, great point. Isn't it time that brands realize that their target group, moms and women, are not stupid and see through their bluff? They're very aware about what's happening.
I think it's a question and an answer where Rinku has answered herself. But that's where I was talking about authenticity, correct? And often brands forget that. The second point that brands forget is that moms are talking to each other far, far more.
And recipes anymore.
Yeah, and I'm telling you that I get people ask me, and I like that people are asking me, because I come with that experience, right? Having raised a child and who's now 17, I would have learned something in that process, right? Which can be passed on. Why go only to, like, when I had Dr. Spock as a book, when I read it because I found it interesting. But I'm saying that mother's instinct is very, very powerful. And that's one thing that I find, that moms today are guessing themselves or second guessing themselves. And that is another thing that we found in our report. Mother's instinct will tell you what is right for you, what is not right for you. And also you have your second reference check, that is your other moms, the wisdom of other moms. And that's where Momspresso as platforms come in, right? Where you have moms sharing their stories. And who will you listen to? You listen to other moms far more than brands trying to sell you things or pretend to be otherwise.
Also coming, just another point on the same aspect. When you're talking about authenticity, and when you're talking about calling the brands bluff, I think we're all doing that, and brands have realized it. I think they're all working. It's not that they're still trying to tell you that use this soap, you will become a beauty star. Use this talcum powder, you will get the job of your dreams and all. A lot are trying that, of course, but they've gone beyond, because me as a consumer, I look at it, okay, that's nice. So-and-so is endorsing it. That's interesting. That may be an attention getter for me, but it may not sway my purchase decision till I know कि इसमें वो chemicals है. Is it safe for my skin? Is it sulfate free? Is it paraben free? Now I know so much more. So, to answer Rinku's question, that awareness is what is making me call the brands bluff. Brands are getting aware of that. They are getting smarter. Advertising is changing. I mean, one has to credit a lot of brands for actually moving and moving ahead and actually taking the bull by the horns and talking about the product rather than the. So that's working. It's only working because getting aware of our awareness of, the women power and women also decision making power.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that gels very well with what Komalika is asking, right? That we're talking about breaking stereotype, but to what extent brands take it seriously. And she's also adding that she feels that it's a very soft and delicate spot that brands are hesitating to focus on so that it doesn't backfire. And are there any precautions that a brand need to pay attention to? So I'll just start by saying that it's a pretty common sense thing, right? I think all of us are observing the changes that the society is going through, has gone through, and what it is aiming at. Right? When we see all these campaigns, and it's coming from everywhere, right? It's not just coming from one direction. When you say "Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao," right? Or when you talk about a woman's economic development and independence related schemes, or when you talk about so many entrepreneurial programs dedicated towards pushing women to become independent, or when you talk about advertisements which are focusing specifically on women in a work related space. When you see all these things, I don't think any person in today's time can come up and say that अच्छा इक्वालिटी की बात चल रही है क्या, हमें तो पता नहीं था, राइट? या रोल्स न्यूट्रलाइज करने की बात चल रही है क्या? We didn't know that was the agenda. The whole world is driven by this agenda of equality, equity, and neutralizing of gender stereotypical roles. Right? Unless you are living on your own and an independent person and not communicating with anyone, I don't think anybody can come up today and say that we did not know that this kind of conversation was happening. So that's number one. Number two is there's no heaven and hell here that you do one mistake wrong. And what is the mistake that you can do? Are you telling us that just because you will show a man cooking or giving a bath to his child or washing utensils, the society will abandon you as a brand? That's not going to happen, right? What is it that you can do wrong as a brand while you are looking at changing these stereotypes? I can't think of anything. Yes, what you can do wrong is going with a little bit wronger, that you're just reinforcing, or you are trying to show somebody at a higher pedestal. So for example, there were the two school of thoughts that got divided when all these conversations around men being awarded when they were doing household chores, right? So I belong to the school of thought wherein I'm not going to give you any award unless it's a monkey who is doing this. Yes, I'm happy to give an award, but it's another human being who is taking care of the same household that they have been living in. So if they put the plates in the kitchen, can't give an award. If they do brooming and cleaning of the utensils, can't give an award. Right? It's the school of thought that says that, अरे किया तो सही ना, इनको तो आता भी नहीं था करना. So that's another school of thought wherein you want to give commendation to even the smallest of step. कि आपने वॉशिंग मशीन जाके ऑन कर दी, वाह क्या बड़ी बात हो गई, सोसाइटी बदल गई हमारी तो, right? So I think the only thing that you can do wrong is approaching the angle that whether you want to glorify when these changes are happening, or you want to say that, oh thank God some change is happening. So the glorification and feeling good about are two very different kind of emotions that you can achieve. And that's the only leveling that brands need to think about. Yes, Parul.
Okay, so there's one more thing that you can do very wrong, and that is not to have women in the boardroom, not to have women in the advertising space while making those campaigns. Not to have women when you're actually conceptualizing that अच्छा हम stereotypes break करेंगे, and you don't have a woman present to tell you कि ये तो होता है stereotype. So that is
तो recipe ही गलत है. That's the wrong recipe altogether. Output तो customer बाद में judge करेगा. आपकी recipe ही गलत है dish बनाने की.
So this whole mansplaining is what is what actually creates problems.
Yeah.
If you have only young boys who are brand managers for a sanitary pad brand or a diaper brand, you are going to go wrong at some level. You will not realize what goes through a mom when she's using those diapers or those sanitary pads and stuff like that. So please, I think that is where, and make sure that women are involved in that kind of communication, the decision making, the product conceptualization strategy itself, I mean, right from the top. And also, or else, engage experts like us who are already the voice of women, but make sure that you have the voice of women in whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
So I can
absolutely.
share. Can I share something which I think is a breakthrough movement, and I can share that because I don't know how many of you have followed the Rio pads, the brand Rio that got launched because we did our work on PCOD and PCOS. Karthik Jory, and the first time it is showing blood. Normally you see the sanitary pads, you have the blue color, and it is not about being newsworthy, but when we studied this entire thing, we realized that so many of them are silent sufferers because they don't talk about what is happening to them. And when we worked with Karthik and he's launched this brand, he says, I want to tell people as is without diluting the narrative, right? People will say, why are you bringing it out over there? But I think it's a very bold move. And I've shared about it because I think it sensitized me as well as a woman that there is so much going on and we don't talk about it because we think it's taboo, right? We also feel about stigma. And I think a platform like Mom's Presto and other ecosystems like that just bring out all these conversations. And this is where the mindsets will stand.
No, that's true. I mean, see, here you're talking about bold step, right, Priya?
Yeah.
And that's also something, that's what we're saying, that you can go as bold as possible and say that I will stay true to the commitment of being part of the change
Yes.
that this society is aiming for. Or second, I can say that, okay, let me see what's the bare minimum contribution I can make, right? And that's the balance that needs to be maintained by the brand, that we are not saying that it's your sole responsibility कि समाज आप ही change करेंगे, right? आपकी जिम्मेदारी अकेले की नहीं है, but understand
And co-create
the
and
contribution.
co-create. Yeah, and co-create.
And at least don't send out the wrong messages.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, aim for being neutral. Don't go negative on it anymore.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
आज की तारीख में, if you reinforce the same message, what I hear and what a lot of women of our group end up hearing is that, what are you saying? ये देखो, ये भी तो कर रहे हैं. It's just that. And I will not go into celebrity endorsements and everything, but because India does believe a lot on the what celebrities are showing. Really love to see Amitabh Bachchan cooking Maggi someday.
But that's what I meant, Pallavi, by now, today, they have mention getters. So if Amitabh Bachchan is endorsing a product, I will notice it. It'll come to my attention, but I may not buy it then. I'll buy it only when I'm convinced of it and I know enough to make that judicious choice.
True. I think everybody has to identify what is the bare minimum role that they can contribute. Like I said, nobody is the soul. Like all of us who are here, you started Mom's Presso, Priya, you are handling Ormax, we are looking at Ungender. ठीक है, हम लोगों ने हमारे कंधे पे जिम्मेदारी ले ली है कि ठीक है, इसी बात को फॉलो करना है. What we are just saying is that brands do not have to take that kind of responsibility, but please do not erase the journey growth. And second, play the bare minimum role that you can play. And if you're audacious, I mean, why not? There's a huge potential. I mean, I remember so many. I'm closer to the parents of a lot of people in my circle, and I saw that most of them were so they were discussing that advertisement when the father is visiting his daughter, and this is that how she is running around the and then he offers to his wife that aaj kapde dhonga, like I will not give this responsibility to you. So this reverse learning that he understood, it made a deep impact. People said that what if he didn't have a daughter, would he have observed the same thing about his daughter-in-law, right? ठीक है, conversation जहाँ जाना होता है वो जाएगा ही, because once again we're talking about community. You can't control who is going to talk about what, right? But at that generation, that brand did end up leaving a point that they have started conversing about. Then somebody else focuses on something, another minute point, that okay, let's shift the narrative and let's see if we can do the same thing, irrespective of whether it's your daughter, it's your daughter-in-law, whether it's your son or your son-in-law. These are baby step integrations, right? And that's the only thing that we're saying, that as a community which is active, which is very connected, very well informed, where information and knowledge is available to us day in, day night, right? And we have the power to speak to each other at the maybe I don't even have to press a button. If the Twitter is open, I will see it flowing in front of my eyes, right? Why not look at that contribution from your end? Oh, sorry, I was just reading what Priya wrote.
I could see your eyes moving.
Yeah, so there's a question, Parul, for you, that are you noticing new ways in which working women are using digital in the COVID situation? Any innovative uses, not the usual ones?
Okay, let me see if I can think of something. So I think, for women who are professionally employed, they're looking for hacks, and they're getting that from the, I don't know whether that falls under your category of innovative, but I think the working hacks, cooking hacks, home hacks, those are anything which can speed up their time and give them a better solution of doing things, as opposed to the way they've been doing it earlier. I think that is definitely something they're picking up from digital, and it's working for them. But across the board, across the women who are professionally employed or not, I think everyone has really benefited from ideas and has seen the rise of the mompreneur, the mother home based entrepreneur. And that's something that we brought out in the report as well. But those home based businesses are doing so well. I think they are the ones who are making the best use of digital during COVID times. So whether it's
And I
you
think
running a
mothers are
yoga
also
class on Zoom,
looking at partners, right, who can help them in this journey, right? And this is a good time, because if a brand can understand what is the kind of partnership, when I use the word partnership in a very positive manner, how can brands help in this journey? Because during the pandemic, there's so much happening. I mean, my life, like I try and see that kya kya badal gaya hai isme, and it has changed. And it is the new normal, and the new normal will require brands to understand how to talk to us as mothers, right? And what are the kind of not only hacks where you can help me out,
make my life easier.
make my life easy,
For
absolutely.
sure, yeah.
And I think also husband's life easy if you're both working together. Is there something that can be given to us ready, like a marinade and already kept, and I just need to toss something and do things? In fact, Jamina is over here. She works with certain brands, and where your brand understands what you're going through, your new normal, and the changes that are happening to you. I think those brands will do better in the future. Yeah.
So that's true. I think women are also realizing and changing, especially in the COVID times. There's more conversation. Of course, there are limitations also, because even within the women segment, there is a segment which is very well connected because of the privileged segment. Then there's another segment which is completely detached with any information, knowledge, and accessibility. But and each are evolving in their own ways, and each are finding ways to access information through different ways and means, and for different reasons also, right? From domestic violence to finding new jobs, or to reach out for general information, caregiving, and so on and so forth. So it's a very divided world right now, and more communities. I would be surprised if 10 years down the line, Ormax, you can come up with a study on how exactly behavior and trends change during the COVID time. And it will be something very useful to look at how the trends are changing, and how, companies, brands, employers, all of them can look at it in times to come.
In fact, I am
yeah.
doing it more as a personal exercise about how things have changed, I think, at an individual level as well. And Parul will agree that each of us have our individual experiences, and how that, in fact, for me, it is very, very important, because how this mindset is going to affect decision making and influencing ability. I like what Shivali has said, that, the fact that Momspresso has a multilingual platform normally when we think digital, we always think metro, urban. And I think what it
Yes.
does, it gives a Meerut mom to also have a voice and a narrative in the conversation. And I think that's the power of an ecosystem like that. Yeah.
In
And
fact,
that's an
it's
important point. Yeah.
so what has been happening is that digital media was completely dominated by English for the longest time. Hindi started coming in a few years back, and now if you're giving people a platform to exchange ideas, contribute, express themselves, consume and contribute content in the language of their choice, it just empowers them that much more. For those who are contributing, they've become, it's really, they become content stars, because finally they're able to write in a language of their choice and comfort, and they're doing so well, because that's it, that's the key to it. The minute you're fluent with your language, you can express in that so much better, and they're getting an identity which they never had before. So that's another thing that digital has done. And I think COVID times have kind of also given people the opportunity to sit down and do that, because like you said, Priya, there's been a lot of introspection. Everybody's taken a step back and gone within, tried to see, okay, what really matters to me, what would I want to do, can I use this time to do something which is important for me? And they've done it. A lot of them have done it, and that's given them this really super identity which they're now proud of, which they're claiming, and they're happy to extend it even beyond when whatever the normal is. I don't even know what normal is anymore, but whatever the days bring in the future, they're ready to take that identity through with them.
And I think the self-construct and identity, having studied psychology, is very, very important when we're talking about empowerment, right? And transformation as a word. And, our earlier session when we were talking earlier at 11, I remember we were talking that women need to start asking, women need to start negotiating, right? We don't have to worry for the world to change. When we start understanding ourselves and what we need and what we want to be, that's truly when the change will really, really start happening. Yeah. And it has been fantastic, because that the first time when you have these conversations, you start thinking yourself that, what has the journey really been, right? In the last 26 years of having.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what, we have to realize that everybody's story is very different.
Yeah.
So, that's the first thing that everybody, I mean, the entire ecosystem needs to realize, that my story will not be the same as somebody sitting in another city, small, big, irrespective, working professionally or not, whatever my circumstances are, children 3, 5, 2, 0, whatever it is, I cannot relate my story with somebody else's. Sure. Brands need to realize that as well, and talk to them at their level. So we were talking about, again, breaking stereotypes and all. So suddenly if they bring a very progressive message to, say, somebody in a more conservative society, they're not going to take it. So talk to them at their level by all means, but talk progressively. I think that's the message that to go out across the board. Digital platforms need to do that. Platforms like us need to do that. Anybody who's communicating anything, if you're an influencer of any kind, just as long as you're talking to people at their level, that's great, but talk progressively.
Yeah, that's very important. And this individual learning is also something that we're realizing is more and more conversations and queries have started coming in the past 4 months along us. I'll just incorporate the response for Srimati here, that when we talk about legal conversations, Srimati, that for us it has always been about making sure that companies are following the laws that have been put in place and put them together in an inclusive manner. Similarly, on the other hand, for different genders also, specifically today talking about women, they should know what exactly is owed to them. Now, in the past 4 months, what has happened is it has diverged into two different aspects. One are the work related conversations, because removal from the organization, not being hired, or being pushed to submit your resignation for whatever reason that the company is not able to do properly, is something that needs to be understood from a gender perspective also, right? That this something that is happening because everyone is being asked to leave, or is this something which is happening because your role is considered not so important, or you as a talent in that role is not considered that important? And if a company has to have 8 employees instead of 20, then the first one that they would want to not have as part of their organization are the optional talent that they had hired, which anyway were not given that important roles to begin with, because that's once again the stereotype that is associated with women talent in most of the organizations, to not to give them the key positions. So that's one conversation that we have been having from a legal angle. And second is the rise in the domestic violence and issues. We've also been doing different conversations around explaining to people, because generally when we think of domestic violence, we only think of in-laws, husband, and marital family, and we don't think of the immediate family, that is your own parents, brother, sister, and other individuals. And so making sure that people understand what exactly are the rights given to you, and what are the different ways to access them, and how exactly you can navigate through them, is very, very crucial. Because it's not that everybody is going to go to court and file a report around it and take up the matter legally. Sometimes just knowing gives you a lot of comfort. You may choose to act, or you may choose not to act, or not do anything about it, but just to know that, do I even have the agency to do something about this, makes a hell lot of a difference. That knowledge, when people say knowledge is power, I can't think of a more apt moment, that the minute I know that I have some right, it suddenly makes me feel so powerful, because then the agency of whether to use this power or not is in my hands, right? And that's the whole difference that we are looking at making. And these activities have increased more and more in the past couple of months. We are It's not a very happy thing I would look for a day when we no longer need to educate people about their legal rights. I mean, that day I think Ungender will move on to doing more things, other things. We'll get into media, Priya.
But Pallavi, I really want to admit that, till you said that the maternity act can also be a discrimination, I had not paid attention to it, right? So you hear about these things. At max, you say, okay, yeah, there are some rights put in place. Or when you look at the posh thing also, you've read it, you've factored it, and then you move on.
Yeah.
I think it's time that when you bring up all of these small things, I think that awareness helps people think, right? And the first step is introspection and awareness, and only then you can really do anything at all, as I would say. Yeah.
No, that's true. I think responsible communication is so important and repetitive. Priya and Parul, there's so much that is being shared with us every day, right? It's like a newspaper, right? Every day I will read a newspaper, but it's only when I see a certain set of information being shared with me in a relevant manner, in a simplified manner, and again and again and again, then I will say, why are they sharing it again and again, right? Then you will take note. Then you will only read it again about it if it is relevant to you, and if it is something which is useful for you, right? And that's how we need to approach it. And we don't look at it as just mere communication, right? As long as the problem persists, the solution should also persist. So that's why I said, the day these things are solved, I think we will move on to.
Super. I think.
Oh, you're on
no
mute.
more questions.
Yeah, I was on mute. Yeah. No, on your point about being repetitive, it's the same thing that I'm drawing an analogy to the household when we are talking about, sex and sex education, as it may be called, or the birds and the bees, whatever you call it. When we're talking about these concepts with our children, we have to keep repeating them differently at every age, age appropriately, with a different context, with a different connotation. So if I start by naming body parts at age 4, I'm talking about consent at age 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Similarly, in the workplace, I have to repeat these conversations again and again. One, because of course there's a dynamic nature of, the workforce. And two, also people forget. And of course, contexts change. Things might have, been different. There might be a new example to quote. There will always be some different changing context, which is of why it's important to keep repeating that. One day the message will go home, and one day it'll normalize it as well. If you hear it often enough, you will realize that ye to important cheez hai, ye kuch, like this is something to be taken note of. I think at the end of the day, workplaces also need to realize that, for women to come and work productively, they also need to be sure that it's a safe space. We spoke of safe spaces earlier. And as much as, my online community may be a safe space, I need to be reassured that my workplace is also a safe space.
No, and that's the branding I think workplaces should focus on. I mean, we always tell all the companies that, hey, I mean, we are looking for safe and inclusive workplaces. If you are one, let us know, because we have our own way of vetting, right? It's you're good, wonderful, you're great, wonderful, but are you safe? And are you inclusive? That's a different parameter altogether. And it's high time that we start looking at it very dedicatedly, right? It's that's how we need to look at it, and that's how we need to start thinking about it also. Otherwise the companies are not going to think. uh Parul, there's a question for you.
Yeah, I'm just going through that. What trends or changes do you see with regards to social media and mothers now? I know there's been a surge in posting, reading, sharing, but what are these conversations centered about? Is there a change in context now that you see from before? You know, one change that we've certainly seen, and the report also brings it out, is how a mom's role is changing from, you know, the mother who's in the one top down communication to the child, to the learner. She's actually learning from her child. So you'll see that, you'll see a lot of those kind of changes in the communication also. My child was saying this has happened, does anybody know about it? So as the child grows older, of course, and there'll be conversations about PUBG or whatever, you know, which we've never heard about. So of course, all that is there. College level admissions, etc., etc. That, does anybody know? My child was asking about these things. That is, of course, that's a very, you know, that's a given. That would happen with every generation. But I think in general, what is happening is that, you know, moms are also surprised how much their kids know.
Yeah.
And they're talking about that a lot, that, you know, my child is already aware. A lot of it is with pride and with that whole stamp of, you know, mere bete ko sab aata hai, whatever, that report card that moms love to show on social media. A lot of it is with this genuine wonder that, look at this, how does this child know so much, and look at what they've created. I see a lot of that, Rinku. That is one of the changes that I see, that moms are moving from their achievements to a lot of what their kids are doing. And kids are doing a lot. So, you know, there's plenty to talk about as well, and plenty for moms to learn. So moms seem to be on the learning curve now. And it's quite evident from those conversations.
Anything, Priya, that you would like to add to this, your observations?
Parul is the champion on social media. And I must say, and I must be honest, I thought I would admit that I was very, you know, this whole digital thing that is happening, correct? Because I'm in favor of digital detox, because I know that the amount of time you spend on screen, the amount of time you, you know, keep absorbing that information can also hardwire you in a very different way,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it was very, very important that when we partnered together, I was very, very, I wanted to make sure that the partner that, you know, is worried about women's well-being, right, is worried about the information and the narrative that they're putting out, because that is very, very important. The language narrative that will sow the seeds for the future. And I think, Pallavi, in the same sense, that when we came together, we said, okay, our wavelengths are matching because we're talking the same language, or we're talking the same thoughts. And I think that's what social media is about. Whether they can a mother see her identity transformation?
Yeah.
Can she learn something? Can she be vulnerable in a group and say, hey, you know, my child is gay, I need help, right? Or, you know, what is these conversations that are happening? Oh, my child is very anxious. Oh, I'm feeling depressed and I've got postpartum depression. And if there is a community support over there to have these conversations and narratives, I think we are better off. Yeah. And I'm happy to be part of these conversations, because it's going to take a while to change things, but we have started today. Yeah.
No, not in this lifetime. The only thing that we can do is pass on the, you know, that, what do you
We
say?
pass it on.
Yeah, you just
Like
pass
a
it.
relay. Like a
वो
relay.
मशाल नहीं होती है, वो आगे देनी है. You have to make sure the fire keeps burning. That's it.
Of course. Of course.
So,
Yep.
I think we have covered all the questions.
Yes.
I don't think I missed out anything, and we're also right on time. This has been such a lovely, and more than lovely, actually, this has been such an educational and enriching conversation. Right? It's very rare that three different organizations come together, or even two organizations come together, and we realized that, right, Priya, when we were having this initial discussion, we can't complete it in one. I don't even think we can cover it all in three, right? Because there's so much that you need to keep dissecting, so much that you need to like keep putting under the microscope and say that isko dhang se study karna hai, तभी सबको समझ में आएगा, right? There's so many nuance to it. So for me, it has been such a learning journey of the past 3 sessions. Parul, community building, I'll exchange notes with you
For
offline.
sure.
And we'll look forward to being part of that community also. But for everyone, I just want to say that do let us know what more we should be discussing, as a team, as organizations who have were working on this particular subject very dedicatedly. And that's all from my end. But Priya, Parul, what would you like to say before we say bye to our audience?
So I just want to say thank you, because I know that taking out time to participate in conversations of this nature tells me that the audience is looking to make a difference. Yes. And that is the first point. And I also wanted to say that having agreed to do this, it also is a sort of commitment that we would want to see a lot more women in our workplace in very like senior positions, right? I would like to see another CEO. I would like to see people in the boardroom represented. And that is the reason for my commitment with my partnership to Momspresso as well, and to you at Anjana Pallavi, that, when we come together, it can't happen with one person. It has to happen with a collective.
Yeah.
And I think that collective spirit is what I'm committed to, and we were able to do this. Yes.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Priya and Pallavi. And it's so true that, your vibe attracts your tribe. And I see this tribe as being, right on point, bang on as far as the kind of thoughts that we have. It's completely aligned to the way we've been thinking. We want to, the whole idea is to just inspire women, inspire the woman in every mom, as we say. There's so much more to you. And that comes out only when we are discussing and getting different perspectives. So I strongly believe in the power of perspectives, and I'm so glad that we're being able to do that through platforms and through associations like this. So more power to us, and looking forward to many more of these. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. Do you want to take the controversial question here? Jamina,
Yes.
I don't think this is controversial. We talk to men all the time. We talk to male leaders all the time. And this is purely, once again, bringing back what Priya was saying. It's a collective journey, right? Unless we are looking at making 3 different worlds, wherein one world is for women, another one is for men, and the third world is for trans community. And even after those 3 worlds, I don't think that we will be able to have all the space just for ourselves, because there's so many spectrums, so many different segments other than gender that we can, and even within gender, right? There's a cisgender, even within one single gender, there's so much, right? Collective approach is the only way to go about it. Yeah, Parul.
Sorry. No, I was just saying that to that point. So I agree that yes, it's always good to have a male voice and a male perspective to this. But what I have seen is, in our experience, whenever we've had men on the panel or men in a primarily women's audience, is that they're very politically correct. They will not say things that they feel. It's all
psychology plays role. Priya and I will design questionnaire for them.
No, we have Adnan, who is in my team, and he's bloody damn good. Okay. And I know Vikas is from here. So I think it is also when we are talking, and I'm now thinking aloud, that if I had to send these messages out, did I only send it out to women? No, I didn't. I sent it to all my friends who thought that, hey, listen, we all need to be part of this and listen to it. And I think that's where we need to check. And I think Jamina is coming from that, is that we might have somebody who is very vocal, and we might want to get somebody who is not political and is very vocal and would say what he wants to say. And I think that stirs the pot, right? Usually.
Yeah, and we don't even have to hunt them. I know a lot of them in our circle. Those are the only ones I get along with, and I'm sure that's the same for you also. Those are the only ones we can get along with or do something constructive with.
Yeah. And as I would say,
just to put that in perspective, the 3 founders of Momspresso are all men. So there you go.
Yes.
They're part of our tribe.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great then. Thank you so much, Priya, Parul, everyone
you.
here who joined us for this conversation. We do hope to see all of you again very soon on new topics and new
Thank you,
insights.
guys. Lovely. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Yeah?
Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Thank you.
Bye-bye. See ya.